All right, cool.
Yeah!
The shout now. Well done, Bobby Johnson. Well done, Manchester United.
Beckham. Into Sheringham. And Solskjaer has won it!
Welcome to United Hour, your official Red Cafe podcast for all things Manchester United. I'm your host, Nick.
And I'm Ashwin.
Two of us over here, me over here, and Ashwin the other side of the pond, the Atlantic, recording straight after the Manchester Derby Carabao Cup semi-final. Obviously, it's ended up being a disappointing night, a lot of expectation on this game, and, normally I wouldn't be that bothered about the League Cup, and, Fergie often used to put out reserve teams and treated it as like a pretty minor competition, but it's become more important because we haven't won things for a long time. And this being a Manchester derby, and there was a lot of talk about how, Ole lost those three semi-finals last season. So it's become much, much more important, this game. And in the end, we've lost it. I thought it was a pretty even game, but I already see some of the knives out from the usual suspects talking about whether Ole's up to it or not. But yeah, what was your immediate kind of assessment of the game, Ashwin?
I thought our front four was shit, and that was that. I honestly, and it's basically, it boils down to, I thought Martial was terrible. I thought Bruno was really poor. He had one of those games where you just want to punch him in the face after, because there was that chance right at the end of the first half where he gets played in. He's got plenty of time, plenty of space. And he tries to do this immediate one-touch kind of outside of the right foot pass into Rashford for no reason at all. Like, he could have taken a touch and played the same pass he wanted to way easier than what he tried to do. He was overcomplicating a lot of things throughout the game, I thought. I thought Rashford had some moments. Some of his runs were good, and I actually feel bad because he made a few runs where I thought people just didn't play him in, and he can't really control that. But there were times he got played in, and he didn't create much other than one run at Zinchenko. And then Pogba was probably the best of those four, but I didn't particularly think he was anything great. He didn't really create too much. I guess I would say he was mediocre. But yeah, I just not enough from them. And then, other than that, I really have a hard time saying like this player played bad. I thought other than that we were okay. I thought we were pretty evenly matched. But the set pieces are just at some point, if that's it is what it is, that we just can't defend set pieces. And I thought the first one was Lindelof has a chance there to clear it, and then for some reason he pulled out. He just pulls out. And I think Maguire had already kind of stopped because he assumed Lindelof was going to go for it. And then, Shaw is kind of half turned off. I think they both just thought Lindelof's there. He's going to deal with it. So they had turned off. Unfortunately, Stones, who I don't think he really knew much about that. But yeah, he kind of bundled it in. But that was poor. And then, obviously, the second one, it's not even that, like, it just always feels like we're so slow to get out of our own box, even when we clear it. And maybe it wouldn't change anything because that was a really instantaneous and really a good strike from Fernandinho. But, I guess you could maybe say Wan-Bissaka should do better with the clearance. I don't even know if that's fair, but if you want to, that's fine. But, like, yeah, it just feels like there was nobody even running at him. And I don't understand that because the ball takes two deflections before it even gets to Fernandinho. Initially whoever touched it and then Wan-Bissaka touched it again. It's really infuriating for me, and it's really poor to concede to City from set pieces who are not exactly, this is not a team that is loaded with gigantic human beings. And then our own set piece. Maguire probably as good as Maguire was defensively, I thought that. He really should be scoring on set pieces more. And today, you have to at least get a shot on target with some of the the balls that were played into him on corners. So I don't know. That was really disappointing. Overall, I thought we played fine, but the difference just in the final third was we just never quite could find that final pass or the right decision or just fucking shoot it. Would be a good start too for somebody like Martial.
So I think in 5 minutes there, you've just covered everything I was going to talk about for an hour. So I don't know what we're going to talk about now. But let's. I agree with a lot of what you said there. But look, let's rewind a little bit. Go back to the start of the game. I mean, yeah, there was some talk kind of pre-match about how strong was Ole going to go. Obviously, there's been a lot of focus on our league form. That all of a sudden we've ended up joint top of the league with a game in hand after Liverpool lose to Southampton. Well done Saints over there the other day, and especially great to see Danny Ings get that goal as well. So yeah, all of a sudden we've gone from being people talking about Ole getting sacked to actually being top of the league. So yeah, they started saying, look, how seriously should we take the cups? We had back-to-back cup games coming up. I think because we had that FA Cup game where players can be rested, it was pretty expected that we were going to put out a strong team. And more or less both United and City have put out close to their strongest 11s, if not actually their strongest 11s tonight. Henderson does come in for De Gea, and I'm glad that Ole did that because last season in similar circumstances he did drop Romero, who'd kind of gone all the way through in the Europa. And then, didn't play in the semi-final. It was kind of disappointing for him a couple of times. Whereas this time he's stuck with Henderson, and I'm glad to see that. And I think he had to do that to keep somebody like Dean Henderson happy and at the club.
Yeah.
He's got to give him those chances to say, listen, you can be in this team, and big games even you can play. So yeah, it was good to see that, and I thought Henderson did actually pull out a couple of very good saves at certain points in the match.
The one on Mahrez was really good, and then he had one where Sterling got played in, and I'm not sure if De Gea comes off his line on that, but Henderson came off his line, cut down the angle, and then actually just was able to pick up the ball. I thought that was really good too.
Yeah, well, there has actually been some interesting stats put out just today, and I did post it up on Twitter if anyone wants to go and look at. And it's kind of based on expected goals against, and what goalies should be saving and not. And based on those kind of stats, David De Gea is actually second bottom of all the goalies in the Premier League this season, only ahead of Ryan at Brighton, which I was kind of surprised by because I thought he'd actually had a pretty decent year after a lot of mistakes last year. But the stats are showing that he should have kept out a lot more of the goals we've conceded this year. So yeah, maybe it's just something to keep an eye on because I think some people expected that maybe by now Henderson would have taken that number one jersey, but De Gea is still clearly Ole's number one. But look, Henderson gets his chance, comes in, and I think for the future, it is still kind of at some point he is going to come in there. Just when exactly is the question. But, going back to the match, I think everybody was talking about how we played City just a few weeks ago, and it was that dull 0-0. City came, played very defensively, were not going for it, which is rare for them. And I think, it all went back to how Ole had done Pep on the counter several times before. And in fact, before this game, it was Ole 3, Pep 2. Obviously now it's 3-3, they're even. But yeah, Pep was always very cautious in that game. But this game, within about 10 minutes, already had more excitement than we managed in 90 minutes in that last derby game just before Christmas. There was within, I think, 10 minutes, there was 2 offside goals that were just off, a couple of other chances, and literally 15 minutes in, you were like, all right, this is a proper game, a proper derby, a proper cup game. Both teams were going for it. We were kind of high pressing, especially their defenders, trying to see what we could pick up there. And, it was a shame, really. And it's something that I've now noted that in the last few matches, we have really been going for this ball in behind, especially Rashford. And, it worked really well against Leeds, and then it's worked again in a couple of other matches. And one little thing is that I have think that Rashford is getting offside too much. And when we're doing this, he needs to start timing his runs a little bit more. There's been several occasions just in the last month or so where if he was literally a split second different, he would have actually been through, and it's a goal. So yeah, it's just a little bit of the game where I want to see a bit of improvement from Rashford. I actually thought he was the best of our attackers today, so I do disagree with you totally. I mean,
yeah, you could say him.
He was the one who
it
looked
doesn't really
like
matter.
something was going to happen from. And, he had that, like I said, straight in those first minutes, ended up being offside. There was another great kind of turn and feint he made. And then it's Diaz who came in for a brilliant block that looked like that was going to be going in. So he did look over there and what do you think about Rashford on the right? Because, he's played a lot on the left. We've had this massive issue on the right-hand side. Now, all of a sudden, because of how Cavani comes in, maybe Martial's not on the best form, so some games has been pushed out wide. So Rashford has ended up playing on the right-hand side, and I think he's actually done pretty well. I mean, do you think he can be like solving our right side issue, or do you still think that he's really more comfortable coming from the left?
I mean, I definitely think that he is. I think he's probably more comfortable off the left, but he's also been playing on the left for a long time. Whereas he's not played on the right too often. So I think it's fair if he needs a little time to kind of get ready. That's it, or just to get comfortable. But I think he makes really good runs off the right, even though he's not as comfortable at. I mean, you can just tell right now when he cuts in, he's still able to beat his man to get onto his left foot inside, but you can tell he's not comfortable yet to just shoot with his left foot, right? And that takes away some of kind of what makes him so good on the left. But I do think he makes really good runs off the right, and maybe it's something where we need to kind of be looking for that more. And we haven't had a player like that on the right in God knows how long, so it's understandable if players are almost taken by surprise that somebody is making the type of runs that he's making on the right. But yeah, I mean, today, I was really disappointed that we got him isolated on Zinchenko maybe twice, I think, in the entire first half. And both times he just absolutely, just had him in, he was just turning him left and right. And he actually got a shot off the first time, but then I think it was Diaz that came over and blocked it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I think he looks pretty good there. And I do think that he gives us somebody who allows us to actually build a play on that side, which we haven't had with Greenwood or Dan James or whoever else is deputized there.
Yeah, Mata sometimes over there.
Yeah,
Who's
but
Mata is a different style of player on the right side, isn't it?
I mean, he always comes into the middle, right? He always comes into the middle. He doesn't hold the width. So I think Rashford, he doesn't really stay super wide, but he does kind of play in that channel between the left back and the center back for the opposition. So I think that allows Wan-Bissaka to get forward a little bit more easily than he does with somebody else. And, Greenwood, for what he is now, right now he's just a finisher. He's not really progressive with his passing. He's just not comfortable or able to really take defenders on that well. But yeah, I mean, I think that I like it. I think it's something that is worth trying out, especially since it gets Pogba on the pitch in a way that feels like it's a setup that we can play against almost any team.
Yeah, that has been the main reason, actually. Yeah, I mean, I mentioned Martial, some Spain, but it's also, Pogba now has kind of been advanced into this more attacking role on the left side, and Rashford's gone. I mean, I think Rashford looks almost as comfortable on the right, like you say, because he is right-footed and does sometimes come in for these shots, far post, curling them in. That's why you do miss a little bit there. But generally, I think he's doing as well as whether it's James, Greenwood, whoever. Still, it is an issue for us, that right side. And, the transfer window is open and there isn't that much talk about it this time. I think it might be more summer. But, yeah, for me, still, Jadon Sancho is something that may still happen. We might have to wait till summertime for that. But, yeah, it's still definitely
we have Diallo. That's the thing. We have potentially options available to us, but it depends on, and we don't know. Diallo's played, 35 minutes this year or something? at senior level for Atlanta.
He's a bit of a wild card, isn't he? We don't know.
Yeah.
He is going to be arriving now, finally. I think work permits and all that kind of thing have been sorted out. There's some flashy YouTube videos out there I'm sure everybody's getting very excited about. But yeah, he's played very little first team game time. But the guy's obviously got skills. Whether that can be translated into first team performances, we have to wait and see. I actually think, and we'll talk more about this Watford game as it comes up, but I actually think that Facundo Pellistri is probably more likely to feature sooner than Diallo, even though he's a bigger signing because he's been here already for a few months, has kind of settled in a bit, has actually scored a few goals in the reserves. So he could be like a potential, at least for the bench against Watford on the weekend, Pellistri. It might be the right kind of time to give him some kind of involvement around the first team. But yeah, as I say, they're both still young guys. Whether they're the ones, there's a lot to see. I mean, Diallo, like I said, there's a bit more expectation because we have paid a decent fee for him, and he sure has showed a few exciting things. But for me, I don't have much expectation for him coming in immediately. But yeah, who knows? Let's wait and see there. And yeah, it gives them a bit of chance, maybe probably until the summer, to see if they can do it. And if not, then let's see if we can find the funds from somewhere for somebody like Sancho. But yeah, look, going back to the game, I did think in general that the first half was very even, and it goes in 0-0. So yeah, it does show that. I mean, City had a lot more of the game. The stats kind of do show, obviously, they had much more possession, and we're only at something like about 35% versus their kind of 65%. But we actually created more chances. They didn't manage a shot on target in the first half, whereas we had a couple, and we actually had 5 shots in total, and they had 3. So it was that kind of thing that often happens with City, that they have a lot of possession, don't create much, and they got picked off by Leicester in this kind of way earlier in the season, and
they've tightened up a lot now.
Totally, and in fact, it's been John Stones who's come in, who scored the goal, who has actually seemed to make a big difference to their defence. Aymeric Laporte, who was considered their number one defender, is now nowhere to be seen. And yeah, John Stones has come out from the cold and is now solid there like starter. Diaz was the probably man of the match today. And it shows that we were in this game. If it's a centre-back of theirs who's given man of the match, and he did have a good game, it definitely shows that we were in this game all the way, even though at the end, if you just look at 2-0, I can't remember who it was, I think one of our lads missed the match because he wasn't well, and he said, "Oh, I've seen the score, were we no good?" And you say, no, actually, look, we were in this match, it was a pretty even game, it's just those small kind of moments where we give it away. And then, I totally agree with you that this set piece thing is something we have to just, I don't know, maybe we need a new defensive coach or something like that. I mean, I know actually there's been this news this week of Darren Fletcher coming back to the club as a coach. He's actually supposed to be very good on the tactical side, read about, and I don't know if you've ever seen him, but he does a fair bit of punditry now in the UK, talks a lot of sense. Has been involved with the youth teams for the past few months. And some people may forget as well that when he had his big illness and didn't play for ages for United, that back then Alex Ferguson did give him some kind of time working with the reserves and things like that. So he's not totally fresh coming into coaching. And Ole's obviously liked what he's seen, because I think since September or October he's been working with some of the youth teams and now has been promoted to be part of the first team coaching spot. Well, I hope he can work. I hope he knows about set pieces, basically, because we're definitely lacking there again and again, and it comes up again and again. It ends up costing us. I thought we'd done away with this because, remember last season it was like literally every week we were giving away goals from corners, and early on this season we weren't conceding in that way at all. But then all of a sudden it has been the last few months that even though we've come out with good results, a lot of our goals have ended up from set pieces, and again it's 2 today. I mean, like I said, we went to half time. The game was pretty good. I did feel that it was the first time in a long time we went into a Manchester derby and didn't really feel like we were the underdogs. Even though, City are on good form and the bookies did have them at favourites in this game. I think, I know you said you'd put some money on us because you thought the odds were way too much in City's favour, right?
Yeah, I mean, it was what they were. I think we
were at 3 to 1.
We were 3-1, and they were,
evens.
About evens. So I don't know. I thought that was a pretty good bet. I did I did think City would be, and they should be, slight favorites, just because their defense has been strong, and yeah, I mean, look, they obviously destroyed Chelsea at the weekend too, so I understood that and I suspected that, but yeah, this I have defended Ole a lot when people have talked about we don't have patterns of play or we're poorly coached and all those things. I think a lot of that is just bullshit, to be honest. But the set piece thing is a problem, and I think that is something that is related to coaching. I cannot believe that like there are teams that are less physically imposing and defend set pieces better than us. Like today, we start Maguire, we have Pogba, we have McTominay. Lindelof isn't great in the air, but he's bigger, anyways, a center back. Like there's enough size and there's enough there that you shouldn't be like it shouldn't be this terrifying experience every time another team has a set piece. And I don't know what the solution is, but it has to come from the coaching staff, and it should come from the coaching staff because I don't think defending set pieces should be as difficult as we're making it. And again, it's just stuff like it's almost like we don't. Nobody knows what's supposed to happen if the ball comes into like that kind of in between area, right? Like between the goalie and the center back. There's always like this kind of who should go for it? Should any like nobody wants to just take charge there, I think, and it should just it has to be a solution that is figured out because it's costing us, and luckily we're in a position in the league where it hasn't hurt us too much, but you know, like I
yeah,
mean,
well, today that is
yeah.
it. Today that's actually where we
It
fall
hurts
down.
us.
I mean, Henderson makes a few other saves, but City didn't create a huge amount. I mean, it was interesting that Pep put Sterling on the right-hand side because Wan-Bissaka has had him in his pocket on several matches, and he puts Foden against him instead. I mean, yeah, Sterling has never scored against us and still hasn't. So these kind of matchups, Pep's trying to do something different. See what he does the same thing where he doesn't play either Jesus or Aguero, and Mahrez is the one who ends up in a kind of false nine situation up there. He had a few players out with this coronavirus, but you can't feel sorry for them because they've had Bernard Mendy off on New Year's parties when he's not supposed to be, and obviously Walker earlier in the season. So yeah, if City's half of their squad are down with coronavirus, then that's absolutely what they deserve when they've got players like Walker and whatever, Mendy breaking all the rules here, there, and wherever. This kind of thing as well, just on a side point, going off on a tangent, it does really annoy me when I see things like this Mendy, where he's had a New Year's party, he's had people round, and yeah, you might not know yourself, but at the moment the rules are in the UK that you can't have anybody round to your home. Yeah, and he's had a couple of people round for New Year's, a chef cooking and stuff like that. Not a big party, but a few people round. And there's no kind of punishment on him whatsoever. Whereas we're obviously missing Cavani today. 3-match ban for writing thanks mate basically to his mate in his own language on Instagram, and he gets a 3-match ban for that. Whereas we have players who are breaking the actual law of the country and breaking coronavirus laws, and now there is actually a bit of an outbreak amongst the football community. The most coronavirus cases so far, I think something like 40 in the last week or so, and they don't get any kind of punishment. They sit out a couple of games because they have to isolate and whatever, but there's no ban or punishment for that. Whereas the whole Cavani thing for me is crazy, and that he was the only player who was missing today who probably could have made a difference. As you said, it was our kind of front line that was lacking, especially Martial, who just had an awful game. Every time he had it, he was getting tackled, making the wrong choice, and I thought he was coming back into a little bit of form because he scored the other day and had been slightly playing better, but his season has just not got going.
Even today, like, his hold-up play was actually pretty good today. Like, he actually did a good job when we had to lump it up to him a few times, getting the ball, staying on it, holding off Diaz or Stones or whoever. But it was like, as soon as we got into the attack, anytime he touched the ball in the attacking third and had a chance to do something, he just picked the wrong choice every single time. And I just want him to shoot. Like, there's so many times he refuses to shoot. It's absurd for a striker.
Well,
It is
he's
absurd for a
low on
striker.
confidence, isn't he? I mean, last season, I remember we were talked and we said that he wasn't always playing that great, and you could see he was just learning this number 9 role slowly. But his stats were brilliant, and
And the end of the year, he was great.
Yeah,
he
and
was
we
great
said
after
his
lockdown.
finishing was the best. We said he's the best finisher. We said, you'd back Martial over Rashford every time in a one-on-one situation. But this year you can see he's low on confidence, and that's what happens when players get into these kind of ruts. Then they start wanting to pass it instead of shooting because they're not feeling it. Whereas Rashford still is taking that shot every time.
That flick to Pogba, I wanted to shoot myself. Like the one Rashford plays it into him. I think it might have been offside anyway with Rashford, but it was just he plays the ball. It's coming to Martial at literally like the perfect angle for him to just try and curl it into the far post. It's the perfect. And what does he do? He tries to play this ridiculous behind, flick it to Pogba. Like, it's just ridiculous. Shoot the ball. And I don't know what it is. Like, Pogba did that shit against Villa too, where he dummied it for Fred, and it's just like, if there's an order of those three, it's like Martial should shoot instead of passing to Pogba in that situation, and it's like Pogba should shoot instead of leaving it for Fred in that situation, and it's like it almost feels like they both like want to do the extravagant thing sometimes. And just like there are times where you just need to shoot the ball. And I think both of them to different degrees have this issue where they overpass it, or they kind of look for that, that killer ball, right? The one that it's like for Pogba, at least you can understand it because that's his role in the team to an extent. Whereas with Martial, it's just frustrating because you're like, he's the striker, so he has to take these chances and he has to just shoot the ball sometimes. And like, one of the things with him is, he is really efficient in front of net, generally speaking, maybe not this year, but he also has never been good at getting off a volume of shots. And some of that is, we're not good enough in our build-up to create shots. But great strikers just get off shots no matter what. Harry Kane doesn't have great service most of the time, but he will always produce a certain volume of shots because he can just create chances for himself and because he's willing to constantly back himself, right? And I know that Martial's low on confidence, but I mean, thank God the Cavani thing, it's done after the FA match, right? The FA Cup match.
Yeah, he'll be back for the league
thank
games.
God, because I think, I do think Martial will get back into the goals before the end of the season. But right now,
well, I was hoping, that's what I was hoping, that, he had a really good goal scorer's 6-yard kind of finish against Villa. And I said, all right, that's what sometimes strikers, they just need to get one off their arse or whatever, just get it in the back of the net. And then they can like say, all right, I'm back in it and get back on that kind of run. And that's normally what good strikers do. I mean, the problem with Martial is there's always been this question mark that is he a number 9? And last season, for a lot of the season, I said myself, I don't think he is, and we need another. But towards the end of the season, I started saying, maybe he is, because his stats were great. He was finishing, he was 6-yard box, getting headers and things like that. But this season, it has not happened for him. And in fact, I did have a conversation with somebody, I think it was on Twitter today, because he was saying, I wonder if Greenwood will start here. He needs to get his season started. And I said, it's actually amazing how well we are doing this year when neither Martial nor Greenwood have been any good for the whole season so far.
We have, I think between them, they have 3 league goals?
Exactly.
Right?
And last season, that was the stat, wasn't it? They were the ones who carried us. It was the Rashford, Martial and Greenwood had as many goals as Salah, Firmino and Mane last season. And, we had no goals anywhere else in the team until Bruno came in. But they were all scoring and all keeping us in the matches. But this year, this just not happened for Martial or Greenwood. Greenwood obviously came on towards the end of the game today, didn't have much chance to get into the game at all, had a couple of shots and whatever, but it's, for those two, really, they have become a bit of a worry, their form. Like, it's gone on a bit longer than just being like, they were having a month off or whatever. But look, they're still damn good players. And I still think that they can come and contribute at some point, and you hope they get out of this kind of rut. As you say, though, when Cavani comes in, you do see the difference of somebody who is clearly a pure number 9 goal scorer.
And I think it might even help Martial get into goals playing with somebody like because he can play off of Cavani then. And one thing I've always felt about Martial is he's really good at combining with another striker. And with him and Rashford, it's a little weird when it's just those two up top because they neither of them is really like a target man, right? So it's kind of they both kind of want to play in a lot of the similar spaces and positions. But I think Martial can play well off of Cavani. And I hope that we get a chance to see some of that again.
Yeah, totally. Like I say, I thought that he was coming back into a bit of form, but look, let's see. I'm sure.
Yeah, and who knows? Maybe he just had a terrible match and he'll come back against Burnley hopefully and play well. It's because he did he played well against Everton. When
and he got his goal against Villa, so he has been in some better form than he was earlier in the season for sure. But today he was off.
And he had those 2 assists against Leeds. I mean, he should have scored, but those were two really good.
No, like I said, over the
passes,
Christmas period in general, he has been pretty decent. We say today he was not on it, and also I totally agree that Bruno had an awful match. He had one of those days where it wasn't coming off for him. I've said often on this podcast that the one issue with Bruno is that he gives the ball away a lot. He always goes for something spectacular. He's constantly trying to make things happen. His possession stats are always very low down, often around the 60s, 70s.
Today was really, really bad.
That is the thing. When he doesn't get the assist and he doesn't get the goal, then it just looks terrible. And it does happen. He's had these games now and again. It's a big issue that he's played way too many matches. I do remember actually the previous round where we beat Everton, thinking, why is he playing this game? This is the kind of game where he could get a rest. And, he's played a lot of games. The other one is Maguire as well, but Maguire's just a machine and doesn't seem to affect him that much. He actually had a very good game today, apart from, maybe not scoring a header or whatever that he could do. Thought Maguire...
It's also a little different, right? Because a center back, it's easier theoretically for a center back to play every match versus... especially the way Bruno plays, because he's literally all over the place, right? I mean, credit to him, he does track back. He does, he's willing to put in some of those harder yards, but that's why he needs to get a rest. And look, we play Watford on Saturday. He should be nowhere near that match.
Well, me personally, I'd play a full second string in that Watford game. With the league position we're in, I mean, all right, I know we're now out of this cup, but with our league position, the Europa League will kick off again in February. To me, I'm not bothered about the FA Cup in the slightest. I've actually said this in previous seasons and often get abuse from it because I know there's other people who still put a fair bit of importance in the FA Cup. But just because I just want us to finish, not have a fight for top 4. Now that we've managed to get back in there, we're in a really good position. I don't want us to end up having that end of season rush to try and make that top 4 again. If we at least have a comfortable run, stay in that running, stay towards the top of the league. I don't expect us to win the league, but if we can stay up there and be comfortable in the top 4.
Weren't you predicting we'd win the league before the year?
No, not me. It was actually Ed who had a bet with Alex and Scottish Dave, who lives in Canada, who went full Ole in at the end of last season, said we were going to win the league. Then somewhere early in the season went Ole out. And
he was Ole out. He was Maguire out.
Yeah. Anyway. I never thought we were going to win the league. I said if we had good, stayed away from injuries, that we could actually go for a top 4 and maybe be closer to it. But I actually, even though we're currently, in a damn good position, I still don't expect us to win the league because I still think that both City and Liverpool are probably in a better place than us. But obviously, look, this season is a crazy season. Anything can happen. And especially when, everybody then talks about, when Leicester win the league, then you know that anything is possible. And we'd obviously got a far better squad than they had at that time.
But they
yeah,
had
look,
Vardy.
they did, but look,
That's the
maybe
big thing.
if Cavani can start playing regularly, like I say, that is the only frustrating thing. And we've had quite a lot of discussions about this whole Cavani thing and whatever, and it is an interesting question. You'd seen this week actually that the Uruguay Footballers Association had written an open letter to the FA, basically saying that this is an absolute disgraceful decision, and they actually basically were calling the FA racist for
A
banning
lot, and
Cavani.
all their players were tweeting it, and
Yeah, they'd all
yeah.
signed it. Like, I don't want to mention one of them, Roll Ratface, because I don't want him to have anything to do with it. I wish he hadn't signed it, but they're coming from
Your favorite
Godan and
Uruguayan.
yeah, Torreira over there at Arsenal. It was coming. It was from their whole players' association, and they'd all signed this. They'd all backed it, and it is a very interesting question about when players go down and start talking in their own language, and they're talking on social media, and he's not even talking to another footballer, and they then get prosecuted for that. I find it very, very bizarre, and I think the FA really need to look at this and think about where they're going here. I mean, I do understand that rules were changed in the summer, and they've kind of gone for a full kind of no nonsense, no leeway approach to any kind of words being used. And then they're finding any word that what kind of offence can we find from this word, even though there's no offence meant whatsoever, and it's literally the word that means like mate or how you doing in Uruguay. That they're trying to see that, well, could somebody somewhere be offended by this? And I don't know, I just think it all goes a bit too far. But some people might say, look, it's better to prosecute anything than what the FA had been done in the past when
No,
racism wasn't taken
they,
seriously.
they don't care about racism. Like they don't care about it, and you can just tell based like this is all performative nonsense. They don't care about it. They just want the appearance of caring. And I think that like I just find the entire thing stupid, and I I personally find that like I think it's very uncomfortable territory you're entering. Like you said, when you're starting to now police what somebody says
In another language.
in another language, and not just another language. Like, look, it's Spanish, so but Spain is different from Argentina, which is different from Uruguay, which is different from like just it's also a cultural thing, right? So it's like not only are you entering a different language, we're entering a totally different cultural kind of background to it. So I'm very uncomfortable with where the FA is going with that, and I think that you just have to use common sense too. Like there's clearly a difference between there's just like I don't think anything about what he said was racist. Now maybe you could say that it can be interpreted like that, and in that situation you can have a discussion with him, and maybe like there should be some kind of FA provided training for things to avoid and not say, and when people like Cavani come into England and play in the Premier League for the first time, maybe there needs to be something done there. But to do what they've done in this situation just seems like, I mean, would anybody have cared if they didn't do anything?
I think the thing is that nowadays that these things, because of Black Lives Matter, and there has been a lot of big racism cases as well. We had that thing in the Champions League with PSG. It's a big issue. There's a lot of sensitivities around it. So they're just trying to say, look, they want to be seen to be doing something. There was actually a big rule change in the summer that kind of nobody really realized until this case, where the FA basically turned around and said the use of any kind of racial language on social media is a 3-match ban. And that wasn't the case before this season. And last season, we actually saw Dele Alli and Bernardo Silva off City get 1-match bans for things which I would actually say were way worse than what Cavani's done. But even
they
then,
also, I mean, Bernardo, there was also this whole thing where like the entire city, like Pep and Bernardo, they basically were like, they didn't show any contrition. They were just like, it's a joke. It wasn't meant to be that way. Like, we didn't realize, and that's fine. Like, I do believe that like Bernardo probably did not kind of realize the racial connotations of, because he posted a fake picture of some product that had like a black
Yeah, it's a
kind of cartoon.
Spanish. I think it's kind of
Yeah,
Spanish chocolate, but they use
and
some.
he said it like reminded him of, what was it, Mendy?
Yeah,
I think it was.
Mendy, yeah.
And it was like, I get it. I don't think he was actively. I don't think I'm pretty sure he's not a racist, but I can understand in that situation where people were uncomfortable with it, and then okay, the FA feels like, okay, they suspend him for a match. And like, I really do think one match. If it was just a 1 match suspension, I don't think it's that big of a deal.
Yeah, exactly. I
But-
do. That's it.
yeah.
You say the kind of 1 match, all right. There's a lot of discussion about 1 match ban you can deal with. 3 matches when it's a word. And like one thing as well that I do want to pick up, because I've seen a few people on Twitter say, "Oh well, Cavani has to be punished because he's used the same words that Suarez used to Evra," and that is completely wrong. People do need to pick up on this because the word actually, and again, unless you speak Spanish, Uruguayan, or whatever, you don't really exactly know what it all means. But Cavani's used the word negrito, which translate kind of as like little dark mate or little black mate, something like that. Whereas Suarez was using the word negro, and he used it repeatedly in Evra's face,
And
that
it was
is
obvious. Like
and,
we saw the
that's it.
video.
Yeah, it's all about that's it, and that's the thing, that it's all about intent. It's all about context. But the FA's new rules now basically take out contents, take out intent, and they just say, listen, you use the wrong word, you're getting punished. And it's because they're uncomfortable with kind of then analyzing these things and going into it. And they just said, listen, we're just going to have a zero tolerance approach. And some people might say, look, maybe that is the best way. And, this is the way to stamp it out. I personally don't agree. I would say that it's better to try and do something than nothing. But they're just kind of now going way too far the other way. And, for something like that to come out with a 3-match ban. Whereas I say, when players are actually breaking the law, and then, we talk about somebody like Jack Grealish, who now half our fans want to sign. He's actually now being up in court for drunk driving, banned and whatever. Whereas, things like this are not touched by the FA. They're just left to deal, these kind of things are left to deal with the actual law courts and all. But whereas, what has Cavani done? Like, but like you say, people can be taught to when they come. Maybe there does need to be some kind of cultural education. I don't know the best way about it, but I do think that what happened from the Euro and this letter, if people haven't seen it, it's well worth reading, because it goes into the real detail of what does it mean and how can you analyze what people are saying in other kind of languages and all that. But yeah, look, maybe like I say, we discuss this kind of thing all night, and yeah, I do actually think it's just an interesting subject in general, just to talk about what is racist, what is the problem, and no, don't want to spend that much more time on it. But I know that when we talked about this before, you did mention that in American sports, you'll often hear black players talking to each other, even on like the courts and all. And you said to me that you'll hear it on cameras and things like that.
Yeah.
And they're using the N-word, right, quite openly all the time.
There's literally there's a basketball player named Damian Lillard. Okay, he raps. Okay, he raps, and I've heard him say it on rap songs, and I've heard multiple NBA players dabble in hip hop and use it, and I've heard it in, you can see it sometimes in Instagram posts or whatever. It's just like you cannot. I think like there's just things that like think about what the FA is. Who runs the FA, right? It's probably like what, older white men.
Yeah,
and
they are trying to change it, obviously, and there is
yeah,
some bits of diversity in there nowadays.
Yeah,
But
and you have, these are the people who are policing cultural sensitivity. I'm sorry, but figure out your own shit first, and like figure that out, and then maybe you can start telling other people how to live their lives and how they should talk and what. Like, I don't think the FA needs to step in unless it's, like what was the thing with John Terry had his thing, right? With what was it,
Yeah,
Rio's brother?
Anton Ferdinand.
Yeah,
Yeah, look,
yeah,
these were real cases
right.
of
In that
racism. Suarez as
situation,
well.
right.
There is several cases that do need to be dealt with, and they are dealt with. Whereas, stuff like this, policing social media jokes, whatever. I can see, like you say, last season Bernardo Silva, Dele Alli. Yeah, maybe it is worth a one-match ban. But yeah, 3 matches for this seem pretty crazy, and has ended up, yeah, definitely causing problems for us in this period. Like you say, now we will
Yeah,
have
we're,
this
we're
Watford
lucky.
game.
We're lucky we got through
Villa.
the league matches,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
With because that's like this is the worst time of the year to lose a striker. And I'm not gonna complain about it because I'm not Jurgen Klopp, first of all. But also because like injuries and suspensions, they're all part of a season, so it's fine. It happened and we got through it. But this is just such a stupid suspension, and I would say that honestly, if he played for Liverpool, I would say that, right? It's just like, to me, it's who what was learned. What was learned? Nothing was learned. Nobody is like better off for it, and they didn't take this opportunity. If they did want to make this like a learning moment, they didn't do anything to foster that, right? Because all they did was suspend him, and that was it, right?
And
There
it
was
was
no
actually
like,
even said in the kind of report that the FA kind of accepted that there was no racial intent here,
right.
but that their rules now say that if you use any kind of word to correct it to race or anything, there's a problem. And that's the kind of thing, I guess, they've come up with these new rules, and I do understand why they have. They're trying to deal with it. And as you say, when there's a lot of all white guys making rules about racism, maybe they're not really the right guys to come up with these rules, and that's where you end up. But I'd say, look, maybe at the end of the day, I think Cavani himself put out a statement saying that, listen, I'm going to take this ban just because I do believe in this cause. And if it highlights the cause, fair enough. I'm going to accept it and get on with it. And I say, all right, cool. You can't really argue with that, even though he's saying, listen, I didn't do anything wrong, but it's a kind of good cause. And to kind of highlight racism, whatever, I'm going to take my 3 match ban and get on with it. And in one way, I would have loved the club to lawyer up and say, right, we're going to fight this. We're going to bring in
No,
cultural
yeah.
sensitivity
I
experts.
think
But
it was
at the end of
the
it,
right move.
yeah, it's not worth it, is it? It's not worth it, especially,
And
yeah.
and it would have, if they did do that, it would have become a distraction, and it would have, like, those are the thing, like, for the club finally seems to have at least like gotten a lot of its act together. At least on the surface, it seems like the players are happier, and there's a kind of like an identity to how we play, and there's all these kind of good things, right? These like positive vibes that you're getting from the club. If in the middle of this you decided, you know what, we're gonna fight the good fight for Cavani, it would have really just been like, it would have been such a distraction. And because it's United, it would be like breathlessly reported on, right? It's gonna get constant, the the Telegraph, Guardian, all these sites would be constantly talking about it. So it's just like, I think it says a lot. I'm sure that Cavani was like, this is ridiculous. But I think it says a lot about how he handled it and how the club handled it, that they just kind of, I like how they handled it, right? They said, look, we know that they backed him, but they also just were like, we'll accept the punishment and move on.
Yeah, I think, and in the end, I think it was the best way to do it as well. They've obviously timed the punishment to come with these cup games because they have some kind of less importance. Although, the City game, obviously, we could have done with him, but yeah, not going to be a big miss in this Watford game. I mean, just finishing off on that City game, so obviously we've gone off on quite a big tangent, but yeah, it's something I do like discussing, and I know we'd had kind of chats on this before, and I do think in general is a very interesting area, especially as I say, this judgment's going to be coming out from that PSG Istanbul game. That's also a really interesting case to look at, where again, the referees are talking in Romanian about another guy, and something's interpreted, and in ways there's a lot of kind of parallels to what's happened here. But yeah, we'll see what happens in that one as well. But yeah, just going back here, I mean, like I said, a lot of the talk problems now from this game, I think we both kind of agreed that in general we played pretty well. In the end, we didn't play well enough, especially up front, and yeah, really gutting to give away these kind of 2 set piece goals. I mean, the second one I'd say was actually a good finish. And
It was a really good volley. I mean, there
Yeah.
was, yeah. Sometimes you
Wan-Bissaka
just,
could have done better with his header. It wasn't an awful header, and you got to give credit to that finish there. And at that point, it was game over. It's the first one that's the real killer, especially when you've gone in pretty even, pretty happy at half time, to then within just I think 5 minutes, it was like 50th minute, to give away that goal was a real killer. And City immediately kind of sat back, whereas they'd had all the play and we were going on the break. They all of a sudden started giving us a lot more of the play, and we created a few things, maybe not enough, like I say, just because the likes of Bruno, Martial were not on it. You could maybe
yeah.
Ole could have changed things a bit earlier. I would have liked to see maybe somebody like Van der Beek or even, I don't know, Mata come in earlier to just try and see if they can do something different. Like I say, especially when you see that Bruno and Martial are not hitting it, whereas Ole, I think, just feels that, look, they are the better players and they can still pull out something from somewhere. And we have seen Bruno do that before. We've seen him do absolutely nothing, and then, in the last 10 minutes, pull out a goal or assist that makes the difference. So, yeah, I do understand not making that change. But the biggest problem for me is that now there's going to be a big fallout. People talking about how we've lost now 4 semi-finals, and that is the fact. You can't get away from it. And
I think that's actually I think that's actually a fair thing to talk about, but people will focus on Ole. I think it's about the players. I think it's about, can you, forget the Chelsea one last year, but the Sevilla, and honestly, even the League Cup semi last year to City. If you just look at the quality of the teams at that time.
Yeah, we had Andres Pereira playing midfield back then, and that was actually interesting to hear. If you hear Ole's post-match comments, that he says, "Look, yeah, it is disappointing." And again, he talked straight away about the set pieces and how we need to be dealing with that. But he said, "Listen," he said, "we are getting closer." He said, "This is a much better Manchester United than where we were a year ago," and he's right, because a year ago, even though we actually only lost 3-2 on aggregate, we were never in that tie. It was over by half time of the first match.
We won the second half of the first match, as you pointed out at the
time. And we won the second match, but by then, like I said, we were like 3 down or whatever from the first half. And the team we had back then, we had like Andres Pereira, I can't remember, maybe Jesse Lingard, but
Lingard was in the team. I think Brandon Williams might have started. It was just I saw somebody post the 11 from that match a few days ago, and I was just like, the difference is huge. And not just so, and so, the reason why I say forget that and the League Cup, obviously, I just think last year, going into that, I did not have any faith that we had a chance of winning. And the FA Cup one was weird because, to be honest, we didn't play great at all, but 2 of the goals were just terrible keeper errors from Deja, so it's like that, maybe that says something. But the Sevilla match and then today, I don't think you could look at those matches and say, "Oh, well, Ole's tactics were wrong." I don't think so. I think he set up the team in both those matches pretty well. And I think that against Sevilla especially, I thought we controlled that match largely and we were the better side, but we didn't finish our chances and we were sloppy in the final third. And today, I think that we had opportunities to create good chances, but we didn't. We were sloppy in the final third. And at some point, I think it's fair to question, maybe not question, but I think it's fair to consider, is that I think that's a mental hurdle these group of players, they have to get over together. And I know Pogba's won a league title and league titles in, Italy, and he's won the World Cup, and Bruno has won a cup, I think, in Portugal, and more, these aren't inexperienced players that have won nothing, but they have not. I don't think that they have, winning separately in different environments is different than doing it together at Manchester United.
As a collective.
Yeah.
We're going back to Mourinho winning the Europa League. So there is a few of those players left around, but it is a very
Pogba,
different team.
Rashford,
It does, De Gea is still the last survivor from Fergie's Premier League winning team. So
Phil Jones. Phil Jones is still
Phil Jones is still around. Maybe, don't know if we'll see him before the end of the season. I think, the other day, Ole did his pre-match conference. He said, everybody's available now apart from Phil Jones. He was like literally the only one who still hasn't come wherever there. But look, this is the main point for me, that there's going to be a lot of focus on losing 4 finals. And I think there is a point and there is a worry about whether Ole has it to take us to the next level. It does become a mental thing. It is worth remembering that Klopp actually had a very similar thing in his early days before they've won that Champions League and the league. He went to like, I think 3 finals, or was it even
It was
4
more.
finals? It was 4 finals that he lost, right?
Yeah, so he had lost, I think, a League Cup final, a Europa League final, a Champions League final. He'd lost 2 Champions League finals. And he had lost like one, I think, whatever the German Cup is. What is it, like the DFB?
Yeah.
I think he had lost like I want to say he had lost 7, maybe even like 7 straight finals. It was something ridiculous.
I don't think it was straight. I think he did because he won the league in Germany in between that. So, but there was a lot of finals that he lost.
Yeah, it was just specifically cup finals. And like, I remember it because because he's the Liverpool manager. Like, it would always come up on the calf, right? It's just like, oh, well, like, are we sure Klopp is the guy? Like, he can't seem to win these big matches. He doesn't have it. And I think like it's easy to get caught up in those narratives, but I mean, was Fergie capable of winning the league until he did it? Was he capable of leading United to glory in Europe until he did it? Like, there's so many factors that go into this stuff. And it's like, look, if we played Brentford, maybe we're in the final, and then, does that make us all of a sudden, now we're like, we've overcome our mental hurdle? No, it doesn't mean anything. I think, like, the reality is the players themselves, and I think if you ask them today, that they would 100% come out and say, like, this is, we didn't perform, right? We didn't deliver. And I think, like, ultimately it is on them to figure it out. Like, Keane made a very good point I saw after the match where he said, look, like, people were comparing Bruno Fernandes to Cantona, but Cantona in these big matches, like, he produced. He was the difference in those matches. And Bruno was not good today. He was invisible even today to a certain extent. And I think that's a fair criticism, because if you're going to get the praise, which we've all given Bruno, obviously, I mean, he's been great for the club, and he's in a lot of ways changed a lot of the mentality issues that I think we all agreed existed. That doesn't mean that they're all gone, and that doesn't mean that he can't be held accountable for a poor performance in this match. Obviously he wasn't good enough, and he didn't produce today, and a lot of these guys didn't produce today. And I think, like, that's something that I don't know. There's no way to get over that except you have to keep getting to that point, right? And then at some point, you will probably break through, because it's kind of a law of averages thing, right? Like, eventually you'll break through. And, we'll see. I think this team is in a very interesting position because, I mean, like, are we the favorites to win the league? Probably not. I think City are.
We're the third favourites at the moment. City are the favourites, then Liverpool, and we're actually now third favourite.
I actually like our chances more than Liverpool's. I think our squad is deeper. I think it's better, and we don't have some of these key injuries that Liverpool does defensively. I don't think we have anybody that we could lose other than Bruno that would be comparable to them losing Van Dijk. And I think that's a really big loss for them, obviously. I don't know. I think we kind of have a better chance than Liverpool. Either way, the point is just we should be in that mix for a while. And I think that is another chance for these players to prove, like, we can learn from this, and we can break through and get to that final little bit, that final level that you need to be at to win major trophies. And, like, maybe I would care more if it was a Champions League semifinal, right? I mean, I would care more if it was a Champions League semifinal, but League Cup semifinal against City, like, okay, it sucks that we lost. I don't know what you want me to say to that. It's just,
like what I said, like, normally I wouldn't be that bothered about the League Cup, but because it was City, because it was another semi-final, this game did have a lot more importance, and it does give a question mark to Ole and this squad whether they can be winners. But as I say, look, the league form is showing so well that I think we just have to focus on that. That's also, as I said, if we look ahead, next game being Watford, I would put out a full reserve team. I'm talking about Lingard. I'm talking about, I think I did say just around Christmas about Odion Ighalo that I thought his contract was up at the end of the year, but it's
Yeah.
actually up at the end of January. So
Yep.
maybe he has one more chance to come and have an appearance, and against his old club as well. So why not throw him in there, let him have his kind of goodbye to the club. Ighalo, Lingard, Tuanzebe's not played much recently. Mata, as I said, maybe Palestri can even get a place on the bench and come in over there. Williams, there's a lot of talk about him going on loan at the moment. I did actually read that Southampton want him, Leverkusen want him, and Ole doesn't want him to go, which I kind of don't understand because he's not getting anywhere near the team and often not even making the bench. So personally, I think it would be better off him if he's in that situation going getting a loan. And we have seen Tuanzebe filling in pretty well at right back recently. We do still have Timothy Fosu-Mensah around. I think he's probably going to leave the club and going over there. As I said, we do actually still own the likes of Romero and Rojo, and I'm expecting that they will leave in this transfer window. Whether
I hope they do. Just because, what what are they even getting out of being here at this point, right?
Yeah.
And
I don't even, like I say, I don't even know if they're training with us at the moment, if they're just waiting to go.
I
The
think
transfer window
Ole has said they are training with us. I'm pretty sure he's mentioned that before.
Yeah, well, they were definitely at a point, but then I know there was also a point where Romero was allowed to go away. But anyway, like I say, the transfer window is now officially open. We're not expecting a lot of business. We've been linked a bit to a kind of right back. I do actually think that there was a lot of talk about us going for Kieran Trippier to bring in a kind of experienced player, but all of a sudden he's been given a 10-match ban for some random betting insider knowledge he was giving out to his mates, so he's not going to be available till April or something. So yeah, we can forget about that one. But yeah, I'm not expecting, like I say, Diallo will come in, so I don't think we'll do much other business apart from players going out. But yeah, as that Watford game for me, I'm not bothered about it. The only big thing of interest there is that they've got James Garner on loan from us. I'm actually not sure myself, and I probably should have had a look on whether he can play against us in this game or not. I've heard he's doing relatively well over there at Watford, playing relatively regularly. Watford, I had a quick look, and Watford's team is pretty similar to their team that went down. They didn't actually lose many players. We were also linked to Ismail Sarr quite a lot, right? But he's still there playing in the Championship. They've got Deeney, Gray, Cleverley's over there. They've still got Ben Foster in net. So it's that kind of same team, and they've come out. Troy Deeney as well, who's slagged us off a fair bit recently. I don't know if you've seen him. He does talk sport over here and is constantly talking down United. So maybe that is Troy Deeney.
Oh yeah. I've seen he is. I mean, look, it's funnier. He should stick to making fun of Arsenal.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, look, there's that Watford game. As I say, I personally am not bothered about it in the slightest. I think Ole has tended, though, to put quite a lot of importance in these cups because he obviously wants to win something. And I just think, though, that if he doesn't rest a lot of players, that it's going to affect our league form. And now that we've put ourselves in this great position, we should just forget this cup and absolutely go for it. And then after that, we've obviously got our rearranged game. We've had this game in hand all the way through. And that Burnley game is now being thrown in midweek. Slightly annoys me that because previously you looked at the fixture list and we had a week off between playing Watford and then playing Liverpool. And now all of a sudden we're thrown in this game in the middle, which is Burnley. So that slightly pissed me off. And again, kind of, you look at conspiracy theories of the FA trying to screw us over, one with Cavani, and then the Liverpool game, we're not having the same kind of rest. But anyway, look, we had to play that game at some point.
And it's a massive opportunity. I hope that we play literally academy players against Watford. I don't want anybody that factors into the first team picture playing that match because we shouldn't even be. Our training this entire week should just be training for Burnley, right? Because I don't care about Watford.
And Burnley, Sean Dyke has done us over a few times, right? And he always seems to. Burnley as well got a bit of impetus after having a terrible start to the season. They've been a little bit better.
They're in form.
Yeah, and they've got some new American owners have come in, right? I don't know how much you know about these guys, but apparently they're going to get a bit of investment, not soon enough, obviously, for playing us, but some kind of sports science Moneyball type US owners are coming in there, and let's see what they can do at Burnley.
So last 5 matches for Burnley, they've taken 10 points of 15. So they had 6 points in their first 10 matches. So they've had a nice little bounce back here, and I really like Dyche because I think I have no idea how he gets what he gets out of the squad he has, and I think that if he wasn't I think if he had a different background, he might have gotten a move away from Burnley to a club higher in the table. But I've watched a bunch of these matches, and they look like Burnley again, right? Where they're sure you might get chances, but it's like they have 7 guys throwing their body at the ball, and it's never a fun match, and that's what it looks like now. The last 5 matches or so when you play them is that it's not going to be easy. It's not going to be fun. It's going to be Burnley. And yeah, I mean, they're the thing is, this is not even like a team that's mid-table and maybe they'll just whatever. Like, this is they need these points, right? Because they're kind of in this potential relegation scrap, and so I hate playing Burnley. But I mean, this is just like we have to win this match because it would put us literally. I think we haven't been sole top of the table since November of 2015. I want to say under Van Gaal. So like this, I mean, to be top of the table 17 matches into the Premier League season, yeah, I mean, that would be very impressive.
Yeah. I mean, nobody would have even like, and I think we're both some of the stronger kind of Ole supporters in our kind of the podcast group, and I don't think even us expected that we could be top of the table going into New Year. I mean, I did expect that we should be comfortably top 4, and after our terrible start to the season, slightly started doubting it, but I was still confident that we would come back into a run and that we should be in that top 4 race for sure. But for us to be in the title race is kind of ahead of expectations for me. But as I say, because now we're in that position, and this is this weird year where definitely strange things can happen. You say, why not, right? Let's see. Like you say, this Burnley game is just a weird one thrown in there before that Scouts game. But yeah, before we go over there, and if we can go into that game ahead of them, that will just be absolutely crazy. But yeah, we should do. We really should do. Like I say, Burnley do cause us problems, but give everybody a rest, come back, do Burnley, and then, like I say, it'll be Anfield time. I mean, I'm sure we will come back and record after Burnley, so we're not going to do a big like Liverpool kind of preview at this point. We will do that next week. But yeah, look, that's where we're at the moment, right? I mean, it is disappointing today, but if you just look at where we're at in the league and everything, that I see people again talking about Ole out online, just it does annoy me. I mean, I kind of expected
it's disappointing. It's disappointing because we now think we have a team actually capable of beating City, whereas I remember it being so annoying to watch that. Like, I remember watching matches against us, like the last City match under Mourinho, where we went there and they just played us off the park, beat us 3-1. Even I think against City under Ole at the end of that year at Old Trafford, they beat us 2-0, and it just looked so easy for. It was just there was such a gulf. There was such a gulf in not just. I mean, you just looked at the 11s, and it was like you would be like, maybe we would get one player in to their 11. And now I think if you look at the squads, you actually feel like, we have a good team. We have as good a team even.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
I
This
think
was
that's
the first time in
disappointment
a
now.
long time you didn't feel like, oh my God, like, we're the massive underdogs. I said, even though, the bookies did put City still as favourites for this game. But, you felt confident that we'd have a good. And yeah, we did go pretty toe to toe with them. Like I said, they did probably have the better of it in the end. We did not do enough up front, as we've said. So yeah, fair play. They probably did deserve to win this game, but there was not a massive gulf like we've seen this time last season when they absolutely played us off in that first leg. And we've come a long way in that year, really. Now, it is interesting to look back, as I said, at exactly where we were at this semi-final point last year compared to now, and see what a kind of different team we are. And as I say, all those questions about what is our style, what is our team, I think a lot of them have been answered. And now we just have to see that Ole can keep this going, keep that kind of rotation going to keep players fresh, which has always been a kind of problem, and see where we go from there. As I said, I think we'll probably, we'll come back after that Burnley game, unless anything so exciting comes out of that Watford game that we feel the need to record. I doubt we'll churn one out from there, but we'll come back after Burnley. Hopefully, we are top of the table, preview that Liverpool, and go from there. Do want to give a shout out again. Many thanks to those supporters who've come on Patreon. For the next game, I think we are actually going to roll out our kind of match day chat. We already do this amongst our kind of podcast group, and I think we often reference things we've discussed over there. We're going to now open this up to people who are supporting us on Patreon, and you can come and see, especially Ashwin and Ed, always moaning all through the games is definitely worth your money over there. But go and have a look on Patreon, only for like kind of £1 a month or so. You can get access there, and also by the end of this month we will put out some extra exclusive Patreon content. And then look, let's see what we can do here. Like I said, I'm hoping that 2021 will be a good year for United, even though we're all happy to see the back of 2020. And like I said, United is still a great distraction, even when we lose today, because I know you've got all sorts of craziness going on with Trump. We've got our own crap going on over here with Brexit and lockdowns and whatever. So look,
don't worry, Boris is on top of it.
I think we're on a weekly basis. Boris and Trump are trying to see who can outdo each other to mess up things better, all of that. So, as I say, just focus on football at the moment. United are still in a good place, even if we've lost this game today, and it does feel disappointing on the day. But look at the league table and remember where we're at and how far we've come in a year. Look, I think that's all for us tonight. Let's come back after Burnley match, and hopefully we're talking about being clear at the top.
Yep, hopefully.
All right. Good night, all. As usual, please do hit us up on Twitter, which is our main kind of social media nowadays. We are also on Facebook, YouTube, and even Instagram. We just started over there. But Twitter is the main place to follow if you want to hear our regular updates. And Patreon, check it out over there. We will see you back after Burnley. Good night, all.
Yep. Good night for me.